Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Optimized Ecommerce Podcast. I'm Tanner Larsson, and today we're joined again by a returning guest, Ralph Burns. Ralph owns Tier 11, an ad agency that specializes in basically scaling the crap out of good brands. Like that's the best way to say what he does.
That's it. There you go.
So Ralph's been on the show before. One of my favorite people to talk to. We did an episode few months back, and then we've been trying to connect ever since then to get back on again, where we alluded to what kind of his secret sauce in terms of how he runs his ads and how he makes them work so well for e-commerce stores. And it's called the ad multiplier, the e-commerce ad multiplier. And it's this crazy like whole schematic of like flow chart thingy bobber that we're going to go through. But it's awesome. And the cool thing about what Ralph does is he approaches advertising the same way that we approach optimization. It's a multi-step approach. It's multi-layered. There's no such thing as just getting the one click and calling it good, and then hoping that everything's going to work after that. So the cool thing is that if you follow the way that we optimize a store in the buyer's journey, Ralph optimizes. So we optimize the buyer's journey from the time the click lands on the site through the time the click leaves the site. Ralph optimizes the pre-buyer's journey from the time the interest is generated or the visual is shown to the person, and all the myriad of different encounters that need to happen in between the time they actually land on the site, or they do land on the site, but they don't buy and they got to come back. And it's this multi-layered approach. So very, very cool process. Ralph, thanks for being here.
Yeah, man. Glad to be back. I mean, it's like we're like peas and carrots when it comes to this sort of stuff.
We are.
I just saw Forrest Gump the other night, so that's the first thing
that works.
But yeah, I mean, this works like perfectly well with your system. It's just everything before the click, and then you guys take care of everything after the click. But it's the whole way in which we approach it works really, really well. I mean, when you spend, $100 million a year in Facebook and Instagram ads, you have to have a framework to manage those campaigns, and the Ecom Ad Amplifier certainly does that.
Absolutely. So guys, this obviously this is a audio podcast for those of you on Spotify or YouTube or iTunes or whatever, but we also have the video version on YouTube. And today I'm actually going to share an image of the e-commerce ad amplifier as we walk through it. Now, if you can't see it right now, don't sweat. You're still going to understand it. He's going to talk through it and explain it all. But if you want to hop over later to the YouTube channel and check that out, you can see the whole, framework in a visual representation and, fill in any missing pieces that you missed while you were listening. If you need the link to hop over there, just go to buildgrowscale.com/podcast and you'll have it. All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and then Ralph, we'll go ahead and dive into it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is, the way that we look at this is, this is not really, nothing original in marketing ever really happens, Tanner. I think you know that. Correct. It's like we steal stuff all the time but make it our own. And I think one of the things that this is a combination of is sort of Eugene Schwartz breakthrough advertising, the 5 levels of engagement, but also like digital marketers, customer value journey. Like it's all basically the same, but the point is that you're meeting that customer, that prospective customer, exactly where they're at in your journey. And that journey, when it comes to e-commerce, and especially your listeners, it starts with the initial engagement with the ad. And those are people that ideally, and in most cases, and the majority of our spend, are cold traffic. So, if you look at our entire ad spend for an entire year, 80% of it, 70 to 80% of it is on cold traffic, because that's what matters the most. It doesn't matter that you can convert to people who have added to your cart. Like it doesn't matter. They already know who you are. They're already about to buy. But the key to the e-commerce ad amplifier is level 1 traffic or cold traffic, and then taking them all the way through to a purchaser and a repeat buyer. And the way that the framework works is that it meets them exactly where they are on the journey. So if y'all are either looking at this or sort of watching it, well, certainly I can leave a link where you can get an image of this as well, if that's helpful for the listeners, Tanner. But it all sort of starts with levels. So we've got 5 levels of traffic when it comes to e-commerce. And we've now realized that this worked really well for e-commerce. And now we use it for all our non-e-commerce businesses inside Tier 11 as an agency. So it's universal. But it started with e-com. So if you're all familiar with the standard event pixel or the standard events that happen within Facebook, there's different levels on every set of your site. So if you've got a Shopify store, you can incorporate the native integration with your Facebook pixel really easily and create all the audiences that I'm going to go through here. So at a basic level, it's in essence taking pixel fires for events and then showing ads that are relevant to those pixel fires based upon where they are in the journey. So somebody who hasn't fired a pixel yet on your site, hasn't engaged with you, is somebody who doesn't know who you are. That's cold traffic. So that's your lookalike audiences. That's your interest-based audiences. We'll usually have exclusions in there for website visitors or buyers, so we're not commingling traffic sources. But in essence, at level 1 is cold traffic. So at level 1, we use probably about anywhere between 5 to 15 types of ads. One of the ones that we use the most is video ads. Video ads we find work really, really well. Certain subset of video ad types, which is what we refer to as the teach and pitch video, which is basically we have movement, then we have the spokesperson teach something, and then we pitch the product at the end. That's a really good sort of formula for a front-facing cold traffic level 1 video ad. So those people are the ones who don't know who you are. So you have to engage with them in some way in order to pull them into your world. So we love video ads at level 1 because you can create custom audiences from their percentage of view of that video. Let's say 25%, 50, 75%, even through play, which is, 15 seconds or 3-second video view audiences. The point is when you show video to cold traffic, you're capturing that audience without them clicking anything. As long as they hover over the video for long enough, you're paying for that impression. So we create audiences for all of those engagements at level 1. And then we create level 2 traffic audiences based upon that engagement. So level 2 is somebody who's watched a video of yours in the newsfeed, maybe hasn't clicked. Maybe you're showing an image ad or a link click ad, and they click to your landing page. They fire the page view event, which I'm sure your listeners are pretty familiar with. If they're not, they should be if they're on e-commerce. Fires that page view event. So those people are, I've watched a little bit of your video. I've clicked to your landing page, your collection page, your sales page, whatever it happens to be, but I haven't gone any further. So those people are in level 2 audiences. So we gather those audiences, those video engagement audiences, and then the page view audiences, and we'll show them a different asset now that they've gone that far in the journey. Those are people that are cold traffic, level 1. I've clicked, I've landed on a landing page, collection page, sales page. Maybe I've watched a percentage of video. I've gone no further. We'll show them different assets there. So we might show them sort of educational short videos. We might show them longer videos. We might show them product ads, maybe product carousels. We might even do testimonial type of videos at level 2. The point is we're talking to them a little bit differently because they've engaged with your brand in a very sort of light way. They haven't not actually selected a product yet. They haven't collected anything and added it to cart. They're not there yet. So we want to show them messaging that's in alignment with where they are in the customer journey. Does that make sense so far?
Absolutely. Yeah, great stuff.
So cold traffic audiences, super important. Like I said, those are level 1 audiences. That's 80% of our spend. A lot of different video types we use there. A lot of different image types we use there. But then when we get them into level 2, we show these other assets. So once we show them those assets at level 2, this is retargeting again. Like if you're doing top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, that's great. Like that's a good segmentation. What we're doing here is refining it just a little bit more to really speak to the audience where they're at. So level 2, I kind of know Tanner Larsson and his weightlifting supplement line a little bit here, but I'm not really quite sure whether or not I like the whey protein or the pre-workout or whatever it is. I'm creating a fictitious supplement store for you here, apparently. Cool. But let's say I click on the whey protein. Now, because I've selected a product, I now fire, and Facebook will fire, and your site, if you've installed this correctly, the view content event. This is a really important event because this now shows that you've self-selected a specific product out of the entire portfolio. So from your collection page, maybe they self-select from there. Maybe from your sales page, they self-select there. The point is they're a little bit deeper in the journey. So you don't want to talk to them like they're at level 1, because they now know a little bit more of who you are. You don't really want to talk to them like you do at level 2. So at level 3, this view content event, we typically will show dynamic product ads in many cases. So these are, all right, so I selected the whey protein. We might show like a subset of the catalog for protein. Maybe it's a 3-pack of different protein, different flavors. Maybe there's the pre-workout that's in there as well. Whatever it happens to be in the Tanner Larsson supplement line that's relevant to the product that I've selected. So dynamic product ads are like so important. They're like a secret weapon of Facebook. I mean, I know you know this. I'm preaching to the converted here. But anyway, so that view content event triggers these types of ads to be shown. They might still see some of the level 1 and level 2 ads, but predominantly Facebook is going to optimize that audience for the ad that's targeting them specific to that event. So view content event, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get them to get to the next level, which is to get them to add that whey protein to the cart. That is then level 4. And as you know, this is where it all falls apart usually. This is where you get 70 to 90% cart abandonment rates. Of course, if they work with Bill Gross scale, it's way less. The point is like there, you just accept the fact that people are going to bail out on add to cart. So you don't want to show them another ad about like that they don't know who you are. You don't want to show them a level 1 or a level 2 ad. You want to just kind of gently remind them, hey, this is waiting in your cart. Hey, time to check out. Simple language there that's different than view content and level 3 and different than page view at level 2 and very different than cold traffic at level 1. So those ads are specifically targeted for add to cart. We typically will have a shorter time frame on those, maybe 3 to 5 days, that kind of thing. Create your audiences in short spans, as we refer to them, to ultimately get them to convert. And the next level of conversion is level 5, which is now purchases. So congratulations, you've bought the whey protein. That's great. So most people stop there. They say, all right, well, I've got the buyer. I don't really care. Well, if you're a supplement brand, if Tanner's working out and, he's squatting 405, like we know that he can do, like he's going to need lots of whey protein. He's probably going to, at 30 to maybe 60 days out, going to need another ad to remind him to buy it again. So we have other ads there that are reminder ads. Maybe we cross-sell them with different dynamic product ads. Hey, if you like the whey protein, you'll love our pre-workout. If you love our pre-workout, then you're going to love our creatine blend, whatever it happens to be. Point is like the journey doesn't end there. Level 5, we typically will see like less than, 0.5% or maybe less than 1% of your total spend, but enormous return on ad spend at level 5. So that's in essence the whole sort of journey, level 1 all the way through level 5. I think people do approach traffic as cold and then retargeting. What this is a more refined way of retargeting so that you really meet people where they're at in the journey. And it's the system that we use as soon as we onboard a new customer inside Tier 11. We'll immediately, within the first week, superimpose this structure on what they're currently doing, and we immediately see a lift. And I would say in all cases, just because the segmentation of the targeting is really so good. So does that make sense?
Makes super sense. And guys, I just want to point out, like, if you're listening to this and you're going, well, man, that's a lot. But think about it. If the most competitive area that you're trying to advertise or optimize in your ecosphere of running your business is the advertising aspect. Like on your store, you're not competing with anybody else. You optimize that. Yeah, there's a lot that we teach you, but you can do that. Okay. And you can even get by with, maybe not be, I would break my heart if you were doing it, but you could get by with a little bit less in terms of your optimization there. But if you're going to try to compete with other e-commerce brands and they're putting the effort into their advertising strategy to segment down all the way through and really, really dial into their different buyer types, and you're just running I'm running five ad sets and 2 retargeting ads. And you're saying, well, why can't I compete? Well, this is why.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely helps. Now, I mean, if you're spending $1,000 a month or $1 million a month, this does work. It works better at higher volumes because your audiences, as you go down from level 1 to level 5, are smaller and smaller, which makes sense. Like your cold traffic audiences are huge. There are multiple millions of people. Your level 2 audience, somebody who's watched a video or clicked on a landing page or maybe clicked to your page for that matter, those are slightly smaller. But the more spend you have, the larger these audiences are. And the larger the audiences are, the more Facebook has the ability to serve them. So what we sometimes will do, if you're a smaller advertiser, you might not need to separate out 5 levels. You might want to do something like level 1, then level 2, but then combine level 3 and 4 together, because view content I've looked at a specific product and or I've added that product to the cart. They're very similar in messaging. So sometimes we will kind of merge them together. And then oftentimes people will have sort of a separate buyers list at level 5. So the good thing about the e-commerce ad amplifier is that it's modular. You can alter it. You could even combine level 2, 3, and 4 probably together. But ideally, you want to separate that messaging out because they really are distinct audiences. Somebody who's added to cart is far more along in the customer journey to ultimately become a buyer than somebody who's just watched a percentage of your video. And maybe, in that video, you haven't even shown the product yet. So we even know, like on our audiences on level 2 traffic, for example, if we've got a 2-minute video, but the product doesn't appear until minute 1, we know that the 50% video view audiences and or the 75% are far more valuable than the ones that are 25% because they haven't seen the product yet. So you can get really granular with this if you really dissect it all. But I would submit that if you're in a competitive space, you need to get this granular, or at least have the goal to get that granular, because the ones who really think this through are the ones that ultimately win. And I will say this is like, we've got some stuff right now coming out in early spring, according to Facebook, with Apple iOS, where you're going to lose visibility here. And the point is like, you might not be able to segment out your audiences as much as you can at the current date of this recording, as you might be 3 months from now. But don't worry about that. Think about this as the messaging that you're trying to do is the highest, most valuable event, which you can still target to, even with iOS. You're going to want to have ads that are specifically aligned with where people are in the journey. And if that means they've added to cart and they've gone no further, you want to show them, maybe you might want to throw a discount code out there, a coupon code out there, depending on what your finances are. You might want to just sort of give them a reminder or maybe some sort of juicy deal, like talk to each level slightly differently, and you'll see a lift in your conversions. And we'll hand out this template here so you can have sort of an idea as to what some of these assets might look like to help everybody listen to the show.
Yeah, and guys, the other comparison I want to draw here for you guys, especially if you've been following us for any length of time, we talk about behavioral remarketing in the back end and how we really dial in the communication between our buyers to figure out, create repeat buyers, create whales, and basically maximize the money that you're making from your buyer. And there's, on the behavioral remarketing, there's about 13 different main campaign types, 4 main customer segments and different things like behavioral aspects. It's the same thing. You're setting that up because you're wanting to speak to that person who's bought products A and B. You don't want to tell them about A and B again. You want to tell them about product C. Someone who who's bought 3 products, you don't want to say, hey, thanks for making your first purchase, to someone who's already bought 3 different times, right? And that's very basic segmenting that you can set up in your back end, whether you're using Klaviyo or whatever it is. It's taking that same concept, which most people, whether they do email marketing or not, they understand and take it as like, yep, that's what you're supposed to do when it comes to like marketing to an existing customer. But what Ralph is showing you here is how to take that exact same concept, but do it on the front end pre-customer. Yeah. Okay. And treat them the same way. Give them those different segments because they're going to interact with you differently. And every one of these different levels, just because Ralph is showing you 5 levels and it's like, hey, we're trying to get them to purchase by level 5. That doesn't mean you won't make purchases on level 1 traffic or level 2 traffic or anything like that, right?
Yep. Absolutely. That's a great point. I mean, we approach cold traffic as we want the conversion right then and there. That's why we sell the product as much as possible in the newsfeed. So they make that decision, that buyer's decision. I mean, if you're getting, 1 to 5% conversion on cold traffic, I would submit that's a pretty freaking good conversion rate. But the e-commerce ad amplifier, let's say if you're getting 1% conversion on your cold traffic ad, the e-commerce ad amplifier picks up on the other 99%. Because you're meeting them in a different way all the way through the process. So yeah, we go for the conversion 100% on every single step. And I think just logistically taking people step by step by step, I think is logical. But even at level 2, if somebody's watched a video of yours, 25%, you want to go for the sale. You don't want them just to view content, just to add to cart. Like you want to go all the way to the purchase. So all the ads and the templates that we use in each level are geared towards the ultimate decision, which is the buy decision. So really good point there. Yeah,
definitely wanted to make sure you guys are aware of that, because there's a lot of different schools of thought, especially some newer ones that have come out recently in terms of like do a bunch of advertising up front to just build up the audience and things like that at different levels, and then sell to them later, but don't show them any sales material. And yes, that can work. There's ways it can work, but from my perspective of ecom, it's, I kind of go with the Glenn Ross type of always be selling aspect of things. This is why I like it. What you guys do is because yes, you're treating them all differently at different stages, but if someone's ready to buy, they can buy. You're not going to stop them or make them wait. We want to take that money while we can get it. And then the other piece of this, guys, is that the reason there are these levels, if you're still wondering why, it's the same thing when you've heard that, the average purchase takes, multiple points of contact, 7 to 10 points of contact before the sale happens. That's part of it, but it's also different types of buyer types, different personality types. You've got people like me who are kind of more ready, fire, aim in that kind of aspect. Like, oh, that's cool, I'll buy it. And then it was like, shit, I should have actually seen if it was the right size, like that kind of thing.
To a T.
Yeah, that's what happens all the time. Like my wife's the same way. She was buying some shelves for my daughter's closet, and these are perfect, but they're a foot too long, right? I'm like, I don't want to cut these things, like, but she thought they were perfect, the right color, the right size, but she didn't actually look at it, right?
Right.
So there's that person, and they're the people that will buy on level 1 and level 2, right? Sure. But then you've got people.
We love them.
Yes. I'm like the ideal. And Matt, my business partner, he is the perfect consumer. He buys everything, and it's like, why'd you buy that? Not really sure, but I bought it. That happens. But then you have another segment of your market that is the ones that like, okay, I've seen it, but I'm busy, and I'm not really like the impulse, but then I think about it, and if I see it again, I'll buy it. Okay, that's another segment. Then you've got the analytical type that wants to take what you're looking at, then go compare it to the other stuff in the marketplace and do all their research, and then they'll come back and then they'll potentially buy it. But the problem is life gets in the way, right? And then so even if they're intending to buy it, life gets in the way, get back to work, whatever, then they forget about it. Where Ralph's, ad amplifier comes into play is he's constantly following up with those people. And if someone is analytical, and I guarantee you in their stuff, they have content that is like explaining the benefits, the pros, the cons. They're showing different aspects of the product. So it's like the first video ad may be just like the normal, like, hey, buy this. It's awesome. It's cool. The next video ad they see may be something along the lines of, hey, this one feature is really what makes this product unique, or here's how it compares against the competition. Mm-hmm. So you're speaking to these different buyer types, because not everybody reacts to the exact same kind of stimuli to create a purchase. Yeah. And this 5-level process doesn't account for 100% of the personality types out there, but it's definitely the 80-20 of it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's all designed for conversion ultimately, like you and Matt and your wife. Mm-hmm. Level 1 ads are perfect for them. And then once they're buyers, they don't see level 2, 3, 4.
Correct.
They see the purchaser ads, which is cross-selling them and restocking and, reordering, like all those. So it's like the way that it works, it does actually sort of self-fulfill based upon those different buyer types. But absolutely, like, the 7 to 10 touch points, I get it, but we sort of assume that, and that's how this whole thing is set up. But sometimes it's one or two, and that's pretty killer. And I will say this is that the ad amplifier and the e-commerce ad amplifier, whichever way you want to say it, like it works really, really well in the 5 distinct levels, especially if you have a higher price point. And, I don't know whoever said this, maybe it was me, I'm not sure, but like the level of touches that you need to have prior to the sale is in direct correlation to the price of the product.
100%. Yep.
So the e-commerce ad amplifiers, we're looking at it here, it's like 1 through 5. Well, if you've got, a knife or some cool thing that sells for $1, like you don't need 5 levels. What you need is really killer, like front end, show me how cool this freaking thing is. And then maybe jumble level 2, 3, and 4 together in a retargeting, like a middle of the funnel, just to get them to purchase. But because it's it's an impulse buy, you don't need to get too in depth here. But if you've got, a $400 medical device, like that is discounted to $300, which we use the e-commerce ad amplifier to sell millions of them. Like there is a longer buy cycle. This, from level 1 all the way to level 5 might take a couple of months, So it depends on what your product is. If you've got an under $10 product versus a $1,000 product, this thing works in different ways. So, but always sort of keep that in mind. But think to yourself, well, the biggest thing that you should really focus on is the front end, is the level 1 traffic. Like, what am I going to do up there to get as many conversions as possible? Once you figure that out, once you crack the code on that, all the other levels are relatively easy. They're just like icing on the cake.
Yep.
is really it. So
they're batting cleanup.
Yeah, for sure.
So
for sure. Bringing
one other
everybody
point,
home.
Yep. One other point I want to make on this, and actually how you elaborate on, is this ad amplifier is per product, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, you're not just running it once. Like if you have multiple products you're advertising, you set this up multiple times, correct?
Yeah, what we'll typically do is we'll have either a product or a series of products, but because of dynamic product ads, especially at level 2 all the way down, we do use dynamic product ads at level 1 too, which isn't really included on this graphic, but which is catalog sales, which is in essence showing people, your entire catalog to cold traffic. Those work really well at level 1. But to your point, the dynamic product ads will help self-select in the product catalog itself, like what you're interested in. So if you're interested in like we said before, maybe you watched a video on the whey protein and then the pre-workout, and then maybe you click through and maybe viewed content on both, dynamic product ads would show you both at that level to ultimately bring you to become a buyer. So yeah, you can do it by individual product, which is typically how we do it. But then if you have related products to that primary product, the dynamic product ads and the levels 2 through 4 ads will help sort of sort that out. So as long as you have all your tracking set up correctly, as long as you have your Facebook pixel installed correctly on your site, this makes it a whole lot easier. And we'll also, when we do our audits, like you guys do your audits, we'll find like that sometimes that pixel fire isn't firing. So they're missing entire swaths of warm audiences that there's just money they're just leaving on the table. So that's sort of the basics of it, is make sure that pixel is set up correctly. And if it's not, like hire a dev to do it or learn how to do it yourself, and then, install this process. But I would say 90% of our effort and 80% of our spend is really focused on level 1 and cracking that code there. And once you can do that, like the e-com ad amplifier will really help you to profitability.
So is the goal still to be obviously break even, but are you trying to turn a profit like consistently on level 1 or?
Yeah. When we look at it, like we were looking at an ad account last night, like late, it's a women's maternity company, and they're like a very good sign for us is they have very, very low ad spend, and an ideal customer for us and an ideal customer to superimpose this strategy on is that they have cold traffic audiences that are converting right now at a 2x return on ad spend. So, which is great. Like, we love that.
Yeah.
Now it depends on your finances. It depends on your cost of goods sold and all the other things, like what you can pay to acquire a customer. But if you can break even at level 1 traffic, you're in a really good spot. And then level 2 through level 5 will make up the additional ROAS, or additional return on ad spend. So, but we use that as a benchmark. If you can break even on the front end client acquisition to cold traffic, and you have a business model where it's a recurring consumer,
Consumable.
Exactly, consumable. Like if you can acquire a customer for relatively break even to cold traffic, and you've got ways to sell them continuously after you acquire that customer, like, that's a good business model.
Yes.
And all your retargeting, your level 2 through level 5, is just going to be, icing on the cake there, and at relatively lower ad spends versus level 1. So you do have to have, like, for this to work really, really well, you should have a product portfolio. I've seen it work with one product companies, though, surprisingly, like how well it is, and one buy. So it depends, but that's not an ideal. You want
Correct.
more than one product. Otherwise, you just sort of have an offer. You don't really have a business. But
Correct.
I've seen one offer companies do really well, which is surprising to me.
We see it too. And it's just like, you're kind of breaking all the rules right now.
I know it's the exception, but
yeah.
I hate those guys.
Yeah, me too.
Because that out earlier.
Me too. I could find that one product wonder. I could have sold the pet rock, right? We could have been done.
Yeah. Why didn't we do that? Yep.
Well, awesome, Ralph. This was good stuff. So, hey, how can people best find you and learn more about the e-commerce ad multiplier? Obviously, you run an agency where people can hire you, but there's obviously a lot of other stuff you guys have. You also have the Perpetual Traffic Podcast and stuff like that. So, where can they find you best?
Yeah. Perpetual Traffic Podcast is a good one. That's hosted by a digital marketer. I do that in concert with them. So if you're a digital marketer fan, it's definitely a good podcast for you to listen to. That's over on iTunes and now Spotify. I think we actually have almost as many people listening to it on Spotify as we do on iTunes. Check it out there, Perpetual Traffic. And then, of course, if you want to learn more about what we do, head on over to tier11.com. It's just spell it all out, or you can Google it. And
don't do it like me and always type in the number 11 and then it doesn't go where it's supposed to go. You actually have to type out the word 11.
Yeah, that guy's holding me ransom for too much money to get that domain. So I don't know. Maybe I'll pony up.
Not worth it.
When I get Tanner Larsson dough, maybe I'll. So, but yeah, tier11.com. And even if you Google it, we'll show up first, and you can figure out how to work with us over there.
Perfect. So guys, right now, what I want you to do is, first of all, actually, we will have a link to the image that we were talking about, the whole episode below in the show notes. If you need the show notes, go to buildgrowscale.com/podcast. But what we need you to do is please subscribe. If you're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever, subscribe there. Also hop over to YouTube and subscribe there, because again, like today, we sometimes share things on the screen that you're going to want to be able to see or go back and reference. Again, if you want the links, go to buildgrowscale.com/podcast, or you can also get the show notes and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you guys. And Ralph, hey, thanks for being here, buddy.
You bet, man. Thanks for inviting me. Happy to come back anytime.
Yeah, we'll do it again for sure. Thanks, guys. We will see you all in the next episode.